Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee. My name is Kimberly Soane, I'm the clerk of the meeting, and the first item on the agenda, prior to the agenda that was sent out, is to confirm the nominations for Councillor Julian Spence and Councillor Helen McLean as Chair and Vice Chair. Is there anybody not in agreement to those nominations? Thank you. I will take it that everybody's happy for those nominations to go through.
Agreed. Thank you, Kimberly. Welcome to the meeting of this Audit and Risk Committee. My name is Julian Spence, and as of a moment ago, I'm the chairman of this committee. We're in the committee room, but could members and officers please just raise their hand to indicate when you wish to speak, so I can try and capture your eye. And I don't know whether we have anyone speaking or listening in, but could they please be on mute when they are speaking? And could I also ask that questions are kept brief and to the point. Our agenda today, you'll see that there are actually timings we put against each agenda item. They are a guide, but just to try and keep the things moving along, that'd be appreciated. If the webcast stream fails, then we'll also have to adjourn until we're able to reset the connection. So hopefully that won't be the case. Moving to the agenda. Kimberly, do you have apologies for absence?
I will give apologies for absence for Councillor Helen McLean, as she is not aligned.
Thank you. The agenda item 2, I'd like to ask the committee to confirm the minutes of the meeting that were held on the 13th of March.
I can confirm that.
Thank you, Councillor Davis.
I was also there. There were 2 outstanding matters on those minutes. One was that Robin Taylor was going to bring together a joint risk paper to brief the committee at the next committee meeting. Can I make the suggestion that we discuss that, or when we get to the agenda item on risk management? And secondly, there was an update on the freedom of information process that was going to be brought back to the committee. Could an officer please update us?
I did chase that, and I've now forgotten who it was that I was going to. Nicola. Yes, I did chase it with Nicola, but I haven't had a response yet, so I'll chase that again.
If you could, please.
Chair, I think we can bring a report on FOI to the next meeting for you.
Sorry, before we should probably just say announce who is actually in attendance at this meeting, so the officers themselves could identify themselves. Awesome.
Gilby, Internal Audit Manager.
Peter Makers, Head of Finance, Section 151.
Rosie Plaistow, Financial Services Manager.
Susan Sale, Head of Legal and Democratic Services.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Item 3, do you have any disclosures of interest?
Not received prior to the meeting, Chairman.
So, Chairman, I should declare that I worked for the, as it seems, highly efficient Grant Thornton 6 years ago. I finished my employment there. I was on the consulting side, not the working.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Agenda number 4, questions by members of the public. Do we have any?
None, Chairman.
Questions from members?
None received, Chairman.
Then we shall move to agenda item number 6, to consider and comment on the annual governance statements and consideration of potential governance issues.
Ms. Rosie is going to report on that, Chair.
Please.
Me, Chair. So the AGS annual governance statement is a mandatory statement that the council is required to provide annually publicly alongside our accounts. They set out the governance arrangements within the organisation, any changes and any particular risk areas that would potentially be impacting the council and its governance. So this statement helps ensure that the council is meeting the good governance principles that are set out by CIPFA. To enable us to do that document publishing alongside our financial statements, we tend to bring this AGS draft to each meeting to put it in front of members, ask them if they have any concerns, updates that we can include within the document ahead of publishing. So this update is not asking the committee to approve this statement, it is asking to consider if there are any governance changes that you would like to discuss, add to this statement, or any changes in the surrounding environment that we need to consider within the governance of the council alongside the statements when we publish them. So this, just to reiterate, this is not to approve these statements, this is to edit, add and discuss, and we'll do this at each meeting.
Do members have any questions, comments, observations on this?
It's a very small observation that maybe shouldn't even be mentioned, but on page 12, halfway down, there's a statement which says, as a result of the Commission's review of the council, moved from 57 councillors to 50 councillors from May 2023. And then it says in brackets, when all out elections were held. I've never heard that phrase before. It was all up elections, but it's a minor point, but because I was confused, I don't know what are all out elections.
Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of the significant operational events in 2022-23, it's on the borderline, I guess, with the 23-24, but it emerged in the previous year, which is the difficulties, operational difficulties we're having with planning and the possible impact that might have on our operations. To my mind, I think that's a significant operational event or risk that we need to include in our AGM.
Absolutely.
Just to go back to Councillor Reid's point on the number of councillors. Obviously, the elections were held in May. Is this document, just to clarify, an April to April document, or what's?
There's no distinct cut-off on the document as such. So it's to enable the readers to understand wider governance arrangements. So ideally, any key governance issues up to the point we sign the statement, when you've got to reflect then really, also this is for 2022-23, chances are we may not get around to sign this until possibly in the new year, realistically. So at some point we'll have a cut off and say actually whatever new issues are coming along will be a 23-24 governance issue. Because it won't really have any bearing at all, 22-25 statements. I think the elections are close enough, and the statement's absolutely fine, and just for that. I think planning is so fundamental. It was extended at the time in 22, 23. It didn't just arrive here, it didn't just happen. We probably do need to say something. Otherwise, you know, for continuity in the statements themselves, look at 22, 23, there's not a mention of it, or something was a potential designation going on. It's about integrity of the statements.
If we choose to mention the change in the number of councillors, then I would submit that the governance changes in terms of the way the committees are established should also be referenced in. So I mean, there's sort of election and just after the election, or it stops before the election. Well, I'm kind of with you. For the reader, it's probably best to be more up to date.
Yeah. I suppose that in the circumstances that we're operating at the moment, somebody reading the ATS at the moment, it's only a year and a half's delay before they make it to see. Do you have a view of that?
It's a difficult, it is a judgment call, absolutely. I think we could easily include in this statement around, you know, and there were the following committee changes to reference them, and then in the 23-24 statement, when we get to that, we'll go into that in more detail to explain that situation.
I think it's fair to comment on the change of, as Councillor Reeves mentioned, the change of numbers, because that automatically has an implication on the way that the council is structured. And therefore, consequences of that change need to be, I think it would be fair to say that it needs to be identified as a potential issue which the 23-24 period had to examine.
And indeed, the change in the planning committees reflects your point on the planning issue. I have just a couple of yes, on page 12. This is under the changes in governance. There's a reference to the joint management team and the joint governance committee. And it's more a question of how we as an audit committee get assurance that those bodies are performing as they should.
Chair, it's a matter you as a committee request minutes of these committees, and review them with the representation from the chair of the
I think that would be helpful. I think it's important that we.
Chair, if I can assist, there is also a joint governance committee, and that has within its terms of reference review of the inter-authority agreement relating to JMT. So that joint committee does have oversight over the performance of JMT, and also considers the risk register around the preparation of the audit as well.
I think hearing that and seeing the minutes for this committee will give us that additional assurance. Any other questions or observations on the government statement? No, so this will then be also continue to revise it. Will be brought back to the September.
Absolutely. So the next time we come back to audit committee, you'll have an updated reflecting those changes, and potentially we'll have accounts to sign off alongside them. If not, again, we'll do another review and update.
Thank you very much.
Can I just ask how long before the meeting does this get given to us?
These papers are.
Yeah, how they get sent out. I think it's only 5 days. 5 working days. Yes. Is there any chance to have the AGS longer than earlier to study it? Yep, I can give you it as soon as I get it. Yep. Yeah. Just send it out electronically to you all as soon as I get it.
Thank you. Agenda item 7, review of the progress and implementation of internal audit actions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take this. This is my report. As the committee will see in the introduction, or sorry, item 2 on this paper, it includes appendix 1, appendix 2, and appendix 3. If I, as most of the committee, if I say most of the committee and new to the committee, what I'll do, I'll actually use the first one as an explanation as to the narrative that we've got in here. As you can see, it provides who the executive head is responsible for a particular action. And the IE 23 indicates the report and the item that's been picked up with some action required in it. And you can get the description, action and code description. It provides detail of what was actually found. And the 2 lines down, you then have the agreed action, and this is actions agreed by the head of service and the team that was audited. And the line above gives the title of the report, which in this particular instance was cyber security, and the risk level that was indicated and agreed by the auditors with the auditees was it was a medium priority, and that then gives a yellow risk flag. And I'm jumping around here. The exit meeting date, that's the date when they had the last meeting with the auditees before the report was produced. And then you have the due date, which is the agreed due date that was agreed by the head of service and the auditees and the internal auditors. And on the next, I don't know if there's a new one, on the bottom side, you have the status, it's still shown as green because the due date is not until the 30th of June. And it's showing the progress that is in progress, even though there is no percentage showing how much has been progressed, and it indicates the heads of service that were involved in this review, which was Nicola James, who's responsible for IT. But this particular action came out to the responsibility of Robin Taylor as it related to an HR issue. So this particular, the report itself, I must convey, the report itself includes not just those audit actions that are overdue, but those that are due to be implemented between the end of the month of the audit committee. Now, as chairman, we want to change that in future, or whether you're quite happy with that? If you do.
I think it would be helpful to have just an opinion, just almost a table with each of these, so that it will help the committee and members, I think, identify which of these are the sort of critical ones that we should be looking at, because there are 21 of these here. But honestly, I was getting sort of a little bit confused as going backwards and forwards as to which one there was. And I think a little table with some of these headings literally just on those would be helpful.
Because these are automatically generated from the Pintana system. Because therefore I don't enter with them or amend them. So that's something we'll have to look at redesigning the outputs.
And then I think it would be helpful if you could then guide us as to which of these are the critical ones that we should be looking at. And obviously members may have comments on other ones as well.
No.
Well, is it the head of service who's ultimately accountable for implementing the agreed action by the due date given?
They have signed up, they have the responsibility for it, but in actual fact, be somewhere within their service area, who will then have that allocated to them for them to actually complete the task. And it then encompasses part of one-to-one process that we have with their line managers to ensure that basically any actions that have been identified are then implemented within the time frame. That's why we have the importance of having
the executive head of service and the service manager and the officer who's actually going to complete that action to agree and a date as to when that should be, or they've agreed it should be implemented by.
So presumably you know who's going to implement it, you already know that person
Yes.
to ensure it.
But of course, within this report, as you can see here, if we move on to the next one, we have, there's two there for Peter regarding procedure notes and version control. And as you can see, the due date for that was the 30th of May. And these reports were actually provided to Kimberly on the 31st of May, because I had leave coming up. So these are in actual fact only 3 weeks old. So since these have actually been produced, a lot of these have actually already been implemented, particularly on those two relating to procedures and version control and Peter's sign. So of course, because they go so a week before she sends, and of course then, as I say, I was going to read. So the previous chairman didn't want me to bring updates on the night, as in providing you with hard copies, because the objective is only electronic is trying to save data. So therefore, that's why Jim gave a verbal update as to where these updates to save that problem of extra people.
Yeah, all members will have read these. So from the leader, a member will get comments, and if not, to be direct us to the particular extension requests that are being asked to approve.
Yeah. So of course, within as I say, that obviously the election Peter had put in the request until the 31st of May, but we got that at the last committee. As I say, these have been implemented. On the next one, where we have most of the others, I did actually try and put the dates that were overdue in red to actually give an indication to the new committee as to which ones were overdue. But on the Annex 2, you will see the three actions that have been requested for extension. So that was IE 23.2, 021.2. And IE 23.02.003.
And those are the requests of the extension to the end of September.
Yes, that's correct. And this was more related to staff issues and making sure that we had sufficient time to complete that because of the end of year process.
Are members happy with that request?
Although I would ask for the future, mindful of what the rather painful extensions which we had for Horizon and planning related processes, that if we are going to get a summary, as our chairman suggested, that those are highlighted when we are getting a delay in the action to complete the recommended changes.
So we're being asked to extend an already extended.
Yeah, and and this is, I guess, is really what Chairman is asking for in terms of a verbal pointer to us to understand why particular things are being delayed in terms of their implementation.
Yeah, because obviously previously regarding any delays and any requests for an extension, it would actually be the relevant head of service to come and ask for that extension.
Unless they're not all going to turn up. Yeah, I would prefer that. Yes.
And then the third one relates to the end-to-end solution, and that is related to in reconciliation, and that was on page 33 of the agenda. And I think with this particular one, that the previous environmental services manager had agreed that this was the action we were going to be taking, but now obviously there is a new joint executive services taking over this responsibility. As Christopher Wheeler has indicated, we are going to be looking at implementing that, but with a request of an extension. And it's,
Sent to April 24.
yes, yes. And I think it's obviously, just believe it was also to do with benefits, or if there were benefits to the skill synergies and the improvements that we can make to the system.
Members happy with that?
And we have the consent. Index 3.
Consent session for that, or
Yes. What I will do, because I can't actually stop the recording because it stops the full recording, is I will mute and we'll have a quiet period in the middle of the
general public. Thank you, Dale. Moving on to agenda item 8 is the internal audit, the annual report for 23-23.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The internal audit annual report provides an opinion as to the control environment at Waverley. This also feeds into the annual governance statement, which you have previously had on the agenda. But it does also include details of the activity within the internal audit service, the outcomes of those, the results that have been achieved regarding, including the reviews that have been completed, but also the fraud work that has been completed within the team to ensure that properties that we have been used in accordance with the terms and conditions of tenancies. This document also provides on page 49, reiterating a presentation you had earlier. The role of internal audit also gives you information regarding the internal audit approach, how my role falls into the scheme of the process, and also the internal audit coverage that was completed, and an explanation regarding the substantial, reasonable, limited, and no assurance categorizations that are applied throughout that work, and the audit opinion, and it also gives you an overview of the assurance opinions that were provided over that year. And the governance arrangements we had in place regarding anti-fraud and corruption. And at the end, we give an overview of the performance measures that we have in place, not just for the contractor, but those that we have an impact on as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks.
I don't know, there's a gap. in Your page 6. Percentage of internal audit plan delivered. 5%.
Should be 100.
Of course.
Oh, I've spotted the title.
But also have a small question. Performance is very tough. Could I just ask, I think it's a question that we've had before, and I can't remember what the conclusion was. Who does the performance assessment of internal audit?
On my side, that would be the section 151 officer. On the contractor side, and bearing in mind the contractor does the majority of the audit plan work, they actually are externally assessed by the Institute of Internal Auditors. And I think within my paragraph, if you go to page 58, paragraph 6, quality assurance and improvement, and an external quality assessment is carried out by the Institute of Internal Auditors. The last time, it has to be done every 5 years in general, although it can be done sooner than that, but they were actually reviewed in 2022. And again, you can see the actual assessment as to what their opinion was of the output was a police report that Southern Geological Partnership confirmed with all relevant associated elements, because there's certain components between that assessment and that company. It's very comprehensive.
Could I take you to page 53, where you've got the actual audit opinion? And you've got there, in my opinion, the frameworks of government management are reasonable. Could you just elaborate on what the hierarchy of assessments are? Is there sort of reasonable, strong, excellent? I really want to understand where reasonable sits.
Well, in actual fact, overall, it's actually using the same categorizations we use above in the actual internal audits. For each of the internal audits, we give an assessment of substantial, reasonable, limited, or no. But when we actually look at across the board, on average, our reviews are reasonable. So therefore, my opinion is that we have a reasonable assurance.
I think when we move to the risk management agenda item, I'd like to pick up some of your points on the limited element of the finding on the risk management.
On the observations, so
Yeah.
key observations for risk management and refund process.
I think that needs to be talked about. The refund process was also limited. Has that now been rectified?
Most of it has been rectified. You can see from the outstanding actions, most of them are due to be implemented by the 30th of June. And I know the progress has been made on those.
My final observation was on page 63. On some of the actions reviews completed. The cyber security protection measures. Right, you highlighted improvements, a lot of which have been, I think, done. I'd just like to reiterate, I think that it would be helpful for this committee, and I'm saying in September we'll have a slightly deeper dive so we understand cyber security arrangements and get assurance for ourselves that that's also being done. So are we being asked to approve this report or?
It's just to consider the information contained and following discussions at the committee meeting, identify any actions that wish to be taken.
Okay, well, I think the action is on this
On
on
cyber
the
security.
cyber security, and we'll come back on this management. Any other observations from members?
Kimberly, can I just state that the recommendation I had was to enable the audit committee to be informed of the work that has been completed to date, to provide them with assurance that the control environment is working as intended.
Okay. That's fine, I'll
Thank
change
you.
that.
This is very
That's all.
Okay, moving to some Newdale, item 9, review of the progress in achieving the audit plan. With the recommendation that the notes, the contents of this report, Frederick's report as attached. Yeah, would you like to highlight anything for us?
Well, this will be the last update we'll have with regarding the 22-23 audit plan, and of course with the 23-24, we're just starting that one. Nothing in particular that I want to point out, apart from the audit contractor has in actual fact started those reviews that are in for Q1 of this 23-24. And you can see from the 22-23, although on page 77, you'll see performance dashboard, we have only at the moment, and can I just say this is obviously from 3 weeks ago, it was 82% complete, because obviously there has been movement since I have been on leave, and work in progress was 18%. But as I say, that has changed since. And you can see there we have the, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the risk management on page 81 gives an overview of the areas where improvement is required regarding risk management, and also the one for the refund process. But as you can see from the chart on page 84, actually page 85 will be best. The main accounting one, that's at the final report stage now. The property tender is now at close of audit stage. The house using occupation accounts is at final report stage. Grounds maintenance is draft report stage, and the waiving training services is draft report stage, and funding events is now at close of audit stage. So progress is, as I say, has been made since I've been away. And the is there any questions on that one?
No.
And as I say, 23-24, I think this speaks for itself. It's still in its infancy, and there's any reviews that have been completed, because we are still in Q1. Again, we have a similar, as Peter talked earlier on about the external auditors. With the internal auditors, obviously they're busy finishing off 22-23, but they have started in 23-24, and are making progress.
Thank you, Gail. So it's recommended that we note the contents of this progress report as attached. Members happy?
Recommended.
Agenda item 10, fraud investigation summary. Again, it's recommended that we note the success of the fraud investigation activity as presented in this report. Yeah, do you wish to comment on the report?
Well, for the financial year 22-23, we have managed to recover 10 properties back into the housing stock, so that 10 families can have properties that weren't previously used in accordance with their tenancy terms and conditions, which I have put in the figures there with relating to the indicative costs of to Waverley to recovering those properties, which we use cabinet office figures for notional figures. But I think it's to try and highlight the importance of this work, because although we do live in a lovely suburb of Waverley, it's a lovely place to live, though there are people that do try to take advantage of trying to obtain a property that maybe they're not entitled to, or they're not using it the way they should be using it. But what I would like to highlight to the committee is the costs that we incur to recover these is very minimal in comparison to the results that we achieve, to make sure that we are looking after our properties. And if I can just highlight on page 107, which obviously gives the figures for the information of the cases that they've dealt with over the years, you can see the comparisons. And since we started this type of work, we will be getting quite a lot more referrals. But since we have been educating even the housing management team, they're more aware of what they can do before they can transfer it over to the housing tenancy fraud investigator who also takes a more in-depth approach. So we think that in more recent years, there are a lot that they have been able to deal with themselves, or they have actually worked with the housing tenancy fraud to actually recover the properties as and when. Now, bearing in mind, we recovered 10 properties, we put one back into the housing stock as well. We retained the property, which possibly meant that somebody had put in a request for sole to joint tenancy in that particular instance. We can see that on that line regarding that category, and it then appeared, it then became apparent that that person hadn't weren't applicable to be a sole to joint tenant, so therefore we recovered that property for someone else to use.
Chairman, I'd like to commend the person who came up with a paragraph at the top of page 104. Trying to explain the benefits of this type of work, where it saves indicative savings of over £1 million, and then starting to consider the cost of building new homes and making it was a good way to put it across. That's what I'm trying to say. But I'm not sure whether this person ought to be a politician.
I certainly really commend the work of the officer on doing it. It's not really, I think, the number of cases that have been successful. And also, you can see whether you've been pursuing cases that then you are not successful, which might imply you're maybe too zealous. I think it's a good report, and I think they've done very well.
I think the point that Councillor makes regarding building a house for Waverley is a massive outlay, and to actually see in effect having 10 more having to be built within basically have properties recovered that enables that to happen.
Thank you. It's good to note the results of this fraud investigation and name the officer. Thank you. Liz, the same with you for the internal audit charter. We have to note and approve this charter. This is something done annually, is it? Or?
Yes, generally it's done annually. I review it every year. If there are any changes that needs to be made, it comes to the council, the committee for approval. But as this is the first sitting of this new committee, I felt it was important that the committee are aware of what is included in the internal audit charter. So it's just a bit like yourself as a committee, you have your terms of reference, and in fact this is like my terms of reference as internal audit. And there is particularly there are previously about being sit the code, and also in internal audit we also have compliance code, but we also comply with the public sector internal auditing standards for a particular discipline. As you can see, where it formally specifies who is the chief audit executive, not to be confused by the chief executive, because in the terms of the IIE, we talk about the chief audit executive, and here at Waverley, I, as the internal audit manager, I did fulfill that role as chief audit executive. And again, you can see clearly the consultation I have with Peter as section 151 officer and the chairman and vice chair of the audit committee, as well as the chief executive. So this particular report doesn't, you can see there are some changes, so I have made to it, and I have highlighted that those in red due to the changes we have had in structure. So I'm going to for those to be highlighted.
Any questions on the charter? No. None. I will have a motion to approve this charter. Yeah. Charter is approved. Thank you. So, agenda item 12, risk management. To receive updates on any risk management issues and for members to raise any issues for discussion. Any members have anything that they would like to raise? I certainly have, but if I may just kick off then, I know two things actually, is that neither the strategic director nor the executive head are here at this meeting, which I'm somewhat surprised by, given the comments on risk. So we hope that they've been here to at least explain what the plans are for risk, because I went through this agenda. Yeah, we have on the annual government statement, we say that page 7, risk management is an integral part of what we do. Page 9, the risk management framework is a key part of how we get assurance. And page 14, risk register is reviewed by the audit committee. And then on the internal audit report, the opinion, as you said, was limited, but that describes the significant gaps, weaknesses on compliance. So there's also a lot that needs to be attended to, and I would like to hear from officers what the plan for attending to the deficiencies are, whether it is this a risk policy framework, whether it's the risk register, and to have a detailed understanding of that, because it basically then informs all the audit programs. And conscious that we didn't really have time of this committee, I'd like to hear the plans of the officers for preparing this or updating these documents and presenting them to this committee. But in the absence of the officers who are directly responsible, I'm not sure who can answer that.
So Robin Taylor, executive head.
Yeah.
Transformation responsible for just saying about this. So it would be appropriate to ask Robin to attend.
I did speak to Robin and he did send his apologies, as did Ian Doyle. They both had other commitments this evening. But as you were aware, will be aware, we have suggested to you that we have either another audit meeting in July or an informal briefing of some description in July where we can actually discuss these issues and focus on them as a standalone item.
Thank you. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would request, if you're content to pursue such a tack, myself and Victoria Keel, who's now the portfolio holder for business transformation and that kind of governance, I'd be very keen to get to a risk register that the executive and the audit committee could effectively share, so that we were able to both use it in the work that we're doing, and so that we could both add to it and make comment to it as needed throughout the course of our business. Is that something that the audit committee would be content to have at least explore, if not to do?
Yeah, yeah, together. Yeah, absolutely. My concerns here are that, since I've been on this committee from November onwards, we've been raising,
yes,
particularly the risk register and the need to have a detailed review and understanding of it. And it appears to me it's been pushed back into the long grass, and the absence of the officers this evening could be interpreted as the lack of seriousness in attending to risk management. And risk management, in my view, should really go through, through the veins of everything that the council does. And I hope that is the case, and certainly I think a meeting early, that in July rather than pushing it into autumn, would be very welcome.
I certainly would agree with that. Particularly if you do the risk register, which is something as an abstraction in some respects. To my mind, what is is probably more important is how is that actually being applied back in practice, and policies reinforcing the risk assessment which ourselves, and I think with the executive, the portfolio holders understand how that's actually going to happen in the reality of our day-to-day businesses.
I'll just add to, I think it's important to also have some visibility of the incidents when the risks crystallize, so that we can see how effective the internal audit is actually following the risk management framework in the areas that it looks at. I've no doubt that the areas looked at marry up to the risks and to the incidents identified in the previous year. But for me, it felt like it was in a bit of a vacuum. I couldn't see where this came from, where these particular areas focus came from.
I spent most of the last 8 years as an audit manager myself in a large defence company, and generally, of course, absolutely, you're basing your audit program on the established risks within the organisation. From my point of view, we have a collaboration risk register, which broadly does the sorts of things that I would expect a risk register to do, in terms of it deals with appropriate mitigations, it deals with residual risk of particular items on that list. It also doesn't do the naive thing, which is assume that everything can be mitigated down to zero, because some things are accepted risks, and the appetite of the organisation is always something that is in flux. One of the things that we haven't done, I think, yet as the new administration of Waverley is actually look at that risk appetite in a number of different respects. And I don't think until we've put a draft of that register in, can we start to actually test where those appetites are, and in lots of different ways. So for example, I spoke to the portfolio holder for finance today about whether we would want to look at increasing the investment level of the council in things like property, for example. We've previously been at 10 million. We might want to look at increasing that or decreasing that based on what's going on in the environment at the moment. That might be something we take a little bit more cautiously than some have done in the past, for example. But we haven't got anything to start testing that kind of approach. So I would suggest that we take the inter-authority risk register as a template for managing the same sorts of things, and we come up with a draft between yourselves and the executive that we can take forward.
I'm happy with that, because I think it's unrealistic to expect a completed final risk register to be presented to us. I think that would probably be pushing. I want to let's start with what we have. And there are material changes going on that the threat of designation on planning must be
Diminishing.
a risk or should be attended to in the risk register, and the way the officers respond to that, as an example.
But I think that's one of the reasons why it's on every single agenda,
Yes.
every single committee meeting agenda, because it has to be kept evergreen in the light, as you point out, the changing world around us, and which is increasingly more rapidly changing.
So I'd like to see if we go through have a session in July, and then on an ongoing basis, a standing item, a review of the risk register, where officers can run us through any changes that they have made to the risk register, the assessments, and give us the opportunity to also point out where we think there may be changes that need to be addressed. I think that's a regular quarterly assessment. Thank you. So, you will try and arrange something.
I will indeed.
for us.
Yes.
Apologies to members who have been there in the middle of the summer, but I think it's important. Any further questions on this? No? Thank you very much. So item 13, the current annual work programme. This is the committee's actual annual work programme.
Me as such.
These are basically the standing items that we look at each quarter.
Yes, Chairman. Obviously, they are subject to change when things slip, or alternatively, that other issues can arise. And obviously, the committee can request an item to be added to the agenda if there's something that they wish to discuss specifically. And as we discussed in the training, if there are items that the committee raised that you feel needs a deep dive, we can also do additional informal briefings, which I'm quite happy to come along to and take notes. And then we've got that as a form of report to bring back to the committee when we have an audit committee. You will notice that I missed off the information governance item for Nora in September, so that will be added to the work programme. And as I say, the other thing because we have quite a lot of things that are reoccurring or slip from one meeting to another, the one thing we do have in November, we have an annual RIFA report, which last year was the first year that we've received that report. So that will be coming back in November. otherwise it's that a lot of these items are standing items that come to each meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
As I said, Peter Vickers, as he talked us through our induction, made the comment that governance should be an agenda item at each meeting, allowing all us to raise any particular governance issues which we feel concerned about in an open manner. If that suggestion is picked up and agreed by yourself and the rest of the committee, what kind of procedure do you want behind that? Do you want advance notice of items to include within that umbrella, or is it ad hoc?
I think, looking at it, we have certainly on 3 of these meetings, I think we can add it to the 4th, under the heading of the annual government statement, which I kind of see as the reference point, if you like. But by all means, I think it's important that if any member has issues or things that they wish to include, they shouldn't necessarily wait until that committee to raise them with me and the officers beforehand, so that we give an opportunity for officers to respond and members to have a proper discussion about the materiality of any changes.
Yes, and as through you, Chair, as you say, we have a regular annual governance statement item, and as you see on item 6 of your agenda, the first part of it is to consider and comment on the draft statement, and then the second part of that is to of any consideration of potential governance issues. So that's where that bit comes in, is that members can, but please do, as the chair says, please do notify us if there is any governance issues. We don't need to wait, to discuss them every quarter. If you have an issue, we can approach officers and get an answer for you, and then we can potentially just put a short update into the agenda to say these issues have been raised and looked at between meetings. Thank you, Chair.
Could you add, therefore, to the March meeting, annual government statement?
I will indeed. Did I miss it out? Did I cut it off? I will indeed, Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this?
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, we were hoping to bring the statements to today's meeting, but due to tight timescales on publications, we haven't met that deadline for today's meeting. We are very close to getting the audit sign off for the 21-22 statements. So that will need to either be on the forward plan for September, unless a separate meeting is requested for that, if you wish to deal with that sooner.
So there will be a separate meeting before September.
If you wish to have one.
It will depend when these documents are
Absolutely.
signed off, whether are we required to have signed them off before September?
No. The audit is already late, and we do not have the final AFR and audit findings report as yet, and we don't have the final value for money report quite yet. We do have drafts of both of those documents, and we are waiting on services to do their management response where there have been recommendations. So it is somewhat reliant on Waverley management inputting, and we're stuck between that coming back and getting our final reports through. I'd hoped that it was going to hit today's meeting, so it is hopefully within touching distance. It's whether you're happy to wait till September to approve those accounts, in the assumption that we get those final reports through.
I think if there's no pressing requirement to have these signed off beforehand, I'm prepared to September. Members of the committee.
We're no later than September. We're no later than September.
Yes. Please don't let that be regarded as a
No.
as a reason to slack.
Absolutely. Chair, if I may, when we get those final reports, perhaps it'd be helpful for me to circulate ahead of the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So do we need to exclude the press?
We have no items to go into exempt other than what we did earlier, Chair.
Thank you. Any other issues or matters to be raised?
No.
Hearing none, then at
2006, Chair.
2006, and I commend all the members of this group for the expeditious nature of the thing. It won't always be like this. Meeting to an end, and thank you for anyone watching. Thank you.
I have read one now.